What if a key to understanding one of history's most significant religious movements was just lost for centuries and then meticulously pieced back together right here in our time?
Imagine that. What hidden insights made it reveal? About faith, leadership, I mean, the very nature of redemption itself.
Exactly. Today, on the deep dive, we're embarking on just such a journey. We're going to explore Sefer Habri'a, the Book of Creation.
A foundational text, really, penned in 1670 by Rabbi Avraham Binyamin Nathan ben Elisha Chaim Halevi Ashkenazi.
Right, but better known simply as Rabbi Nathan of Gaza.
That's the one.
And this isn't just about, a historical figure or some dusty old manuscript. It's about a truly pivotal, tumultuous moment in Jewish history.
One that profoundly reshaped an entire tradition, really.
And we get to see it through the lens of a newly published monumental work. Our main source for this deep dive is a critical edition and analysis of Sefer Habri'a by Leor Holzer.
A huge scholarly achievement. It's finally brought this long-hidden manuscript fully into the light.
So we'll be pulling out not just facts, but key insights, nuanced understandings directly from this meticulous research. It lets us really appreciate the currents that shaped that whole era.
Indeed. And our mission today really is to delve into this so-called lost book, not just to see what it says on the surface.
Oh, deeper than that.
Right, but why it says it, to grasp the deep theological, the social motivations behind its creation.
And crucially, how does this rediscovery force us to reevaluate what we thought we knew?
Exactly. About the Sabbatean movement, its enduring impact, often hidden, really, on Jewish thought for centuries afterwards. It's a journey into how knowledge evolves.
How new evidence can challenge even the most, entrenched ideas.
And how a single text can sometimes completely reframe an entire historical narrative. It's fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. So whether you're curious about historical crises or the intricate dynamics of religious leadership.
Or maybe you just love a good story about a book that defied oblivion, right?
Yeah. A book that reshapes our understanding of the past. Get ready. We're about to unpack a truly fascinating piece of history. One that, well, it continues to reverberate in some pretty unexpected ways.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so let's start with the author himself, this enigmatic figure, Rabbi Nathan Ghazzati.
Born in Jerusalem, 1644. His full name, as you said, Rabbi Avraham Binyamin Nathan ben Elisha Chaim Halevi Ashkenazi. Quite a mouthful.
Which is why history knows him as Nathan Ghazzati, or Rabbi Nathan of Gaza.
Makes sense.
His early life, it was deeply steeped in traditional rabbinic scholarship. He studied under really prominent rabbis like Rabbi Yaakov Iges until about 1664.
And then after he got married, he moved to Gaza, continued his studies there under Rabbi Yaakov Najara.
So this really rigorous traditional grounding in Jewish law and text, it seems like it laid the intellectual groundwork for everything that came later.
Absolutely. But what's truly fascinating, I think, is how quickly and how widely Nathan was accepted as a prophet.
Even by the established spiritual leaders of his time. That's unusual.
Extremely. This wasn't some, fringe figure popping up out of nowhere or a charlatan.
Right.
It was specifically in Gaza, after he began these intense studies of mysticism, that he started receiving what people describe as ecstatic visions of the Messiah.
He claimed direct revelation.
Yes, a profound, direct experience. And the remarkable part is that the vast majority of Jewish leaders at the time accepted him, saw him as a legitimate, divinely inspired voice.
Wow, that level of acceptance.
It just catapulted him onto the scene, gave him immense authority, influence, almost overnight.
You just don't see that kind of endorsement very often in Jewish history for a self-proclaimed prophet.
Almost unheard of. It really speaks to the spiritual climate of the time, the intense messianic expectation.
And it's worth noting, too, his background. It was deeply rooted in Jewish mysticism even before these visions started, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. His father, Rabbi Elisha Ashkenazi, he wasn't just casually interested in Kabbalah.
He was actively involved.
Very actively. He worked strenuously to print and distribute Kabbalah literature throughout the Jewish world, even traveled extensively on missions for the Jerusalem Jewish community.
Which was itself a hub of mystical thought.
Exactly. So Nathan grew up not just studying these texts, but in an environment where Kabbalah was being actively discussed, disseminated. He was immersed in it from a young age.
That must have given him a deep familiarity, a certain authority within that sphere later on.
No doubt. It informed his entire theological development.
Okay, now let's turn to the book itself. Sefer Habri'a, the Book of Creation.
Written in 1670. A really critical moment in the Sabbatean movement's history.
And for centuries, it didn't exist as like a single book you could just pick up and read.
No, it was copied into various manuscripts, which then got scattered all over the globe.
Really? Where did they end up?
Tucked away in private collections, libraries, archives, from the Middle East to Europe. You can imagine the effort involved in tracking those down, like detective work.
Absolutely. The source tells us Professor Chaim Rzewski of the Hebrew University did most of the collecting back in the 1930s and 40s.
A true scholarly quest, like piecing together a literary jigsaw puzzle.
So this raises a pretty crucial question, doesn't it? What does it mean for such a fundamental text to be effectively lost, or at least incomplete, for so long?
Right. Rzewski, who was a brilliant scholar, he embarked on this ambitious project, a definitive scientific edition of the treatise.
Did he manage to publish any of it?
He published a small initial part, gave everyone a tantalizing glimpse, but then misfortune, as the source rather mysteriously puts it, prevented him from finishing.
So it just sat there,
Oh.
incomplete for decades.
For decades. And this wasn't just, a minor academic setback.
No, it sounds much bigger than that.
It meant our understanding of that whole period, the rise and aftermath of Sabbateanism, has been, in pretty significant ways, incomplete or skewed.
We've been missing a core piece of the puzzle.
Exactly, a foundational document that could clarify so much. And its absence allowed misinterpretations, assumptions, to kind of solidify into accepted historical narratives.
Which is precisely why its full publication now, in this critical edition, is such a huge deal.
Absolutely momentous.
The author of this new edition puts it beautifully. He says, "It is not every day that a person is awarded the great privilege of returning a lost book to the collective Jewish library."
That really captures it. It's not just an academic footnote.
No, it's like restoring a crucial part of Jewish intellectual religious heritage. Almost like finding a lost gospel, maybe, or a missing foundational text for another major tradition.
That's a good analogy.
Imagine discovering that missing puzzle piece, and it doesn't just fill a gap. It actually reconfigures the entire picture you thought you understood.
That's the kind of impact this book represents for understanding the Sabbatean movement and its legacy.
So connecting this to the bigger picture, when you publish a new Sabbatean document, especially one this central, it must force a major re-examination of everything we thought we knew.
Oh, definitely. And it's a common human thing, isn't it? Not just in academia. When new information contradicts what we already believe,
We resist it.
yeah, a resistance front often develops. People try to fit the new stuff into the old boxes. They try to prove the new claims using only what they already know.
Assuming the unknown can be explored from within the familiar.
Exactly. But sometimes a document is just too pivotal, too fundamentally disruptive. It demands a complete rethink.
You can't just pour new wine into old wineskins, so to speak.
Precisely. Sometimes you have to break the old molds entirely, forge new ones, allow a truly transformative understanding to emerge.
And the source is pretty clear that Sefer Habri'a would lead us into rethinking the Sabbatean movement in its entirety.
Because it's the foundational text from the movement's main ideologue, Rabbi Nathan himself.
Written right after Sabbatai Zevi's conversion to Islam. The timing is crucial.
Absolutely. It gives us that insider's view, a systematic theological explanation of events as they unfolded from the perspective of the guy shaping the narrative, not some later, potentially biased interpretation.
It lets us see the crisis through the eyes of those living it, trying to make sense of it.
And more than that, Sefer Habri'a reveals itself as a profoundly deep Kabbalah book.
Right, following directly in the footsteps of the Harari Rabbi Isaac Luria.
Whose work is the core of Lurianic Kabbalah. For listeners who might not be familiar, Lurianic Kabbalah is this incredibly influential, complex system of Jewish mysticism from 16th century saved.
It deals with divine emanation, the breaking of the vessels.
Sefer Habri'a, yes, and the exile of divine sparks into the physical world. The core idea is tikkun cosmic restoration through human actions, especially performing mitzvot, commandments.
And Sefer Habri'a is described as a direct continuation of that, even the highlight of the Lurianic corpus.
That's what the source suggests, which immediately frames Nathan not just as a follower, but as a profound Kabbalistic scholar in his own right. Someone who built upon, innovated within, and significantly advanced that revered mystical tradition.
Taking its core concepts into new, maybe even daring territories.
Definitely daring.
And this detail, it directly challenges a lot of common misconceptions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About Nathan, about the whole movement.
Big time. The source makes it emphatically clear. Torah Israel, the Jewish halakha, Jewish law, and the well-being of the nation at a time of crisis were undoubtedly on the mind of the author, and that he was a loyal, grand sage of Israel.
So not some fringe mystic detached from Jewish life or law, advocating chaos.
Not at all. Fundamentally, he was a deeply committed religious leader, concerned with the continuity, the well-being of his people and their tradition, even while navigating this unprecedented spiritual upheaval.
It paints a picture miles away from those later caricatures of Sabbateans as just anti-law heretics.
A much more complex and, frankly, more interesting picture.
Okay, so we've established his scholarly depth, his immersion in mysticism. But it's the sheer breadth of his influence that's striking. What made him so magnetic?
Well, these new documents, like Sefer Habri'a, they're really revealing the full scope of the movement and its leaders, and Nathan is right there at its beating heart.
The leader of its scholars.
Exactly. Not just a figurehead or a prophet. He was the intellectual and spiritual engine driving so much of its theology, its organization.
And his contemporaries saw him in all these different roles, right? Almost simultaneously.
It's remarkable. He was the prophet, the visionary, the driving force and harbinger who prepared the way for Sabbatai Zevi.
But also a learned theologian.
Constructing the whole conceptual framework, and even the greatest scholar of his generation, a recognition of his incredible command of Jewish texts.
It wasn't just one thing.
No, a multifaceted personality. That's what allowed him to connect with and influence such different parts of Jewish society, from top scholars to the everyday person yearning for redemption.
And you see that contrast in how different groups viewed him. Some saw him mainly as a halakhic figure, a guardian sage of Israel.
A rabbinic authority making legal rulings, calling for a return to Moses' teachings, but all within this messianic context.
While others saw him as more of a complicated social and political figure, the source even mentions someone calling him the last Jew to be accepted by the great majority of Israelites as their common leader.
Which highlights the almost unparalleled authority he commanded across the Jewish world, at least initially.
But what's fascinating is how these different views kind of come together.
Right. Despite the different emphasis, strict halachist versus social leader, everyone agreed he was a Kabbalah scholar of historical proportions.
Why? What was the basis for that agreement?
His immense knowledge of Jewish law, his firm grasp of Kabbalistic sources, esoteric texts, and his daring innovations within that mystical tradition.
His ability to synthesize all these different fields.
Yeah.
Strict law, deep mysticism.
That's what makes him so unique, so impactful. He bridged worlds many thought were separate, showed how deep legal scholarship could drive radical mystical thought, and vice versa.
Gershom's Scholem, the giant, in the academic study of Jewish mysticism and Sabbateanism, he summed up Nathan's unique qualities really well, didn't he?
Oh, that quote is brilliant. He said Nathan combined in his personality traits and qualities that only rarely meet in one individual.
And for that reason alone, he would merit a place in the history of religions.
Exactly. By virtue of his visionary power, intellectual capacities, and untiring energy, he became the precursor and harbinger of the Messiah, as well as the ideological and theological exponent of the Messianic faith.
And then Scholem uses that famous analogy.
Right. Borrowing a metaphor from an earlier but in many ways analogous Messianic movement, Nathan was at once the John the Baptist and the Paul of the new Messiah.
That's such a powerful comparison. John the Baptist and Paul rolled into one.
It perfectly captures that dual role. He was the herald, the John the Baptist, proclaiming the Messiah, preparing the way, fueling the fervor.
Gathering the masses.
Yes. But he was also the systematizer, the theologian, the Paul, building the intricate ideological framework around Sabbatai Zevi.
So not just announcing the Messiah, but explaining him. Providing the intellectual scaffolding for this unprecedented, confusing phenomenon.
Crafting the narratives, the interpretations, the theological arguments to make sense of it all, especially after the conversion. That's where the Paul role becomes critical.
And it wasn't just abstract mysticism. The source stresses his conservative Kabbalistic worldview, combined with an extraordinary innovative component.
His approach was that of a halakhic scholar, a dayan of the highest echelon, a judge in Jewish law.
So he examined everything, every event, every spiritual experience according to the strict standards of Torah.
Minutely, using its language, its methods, always searching for answers within traditional rabbinic literature, respecting past authorities, basing his arguments on hundreds of sources. It's a kind of scholarly rigor applied even to most unconventional claims.
Yeah, and this is key to understanding him. The Jewish world saw Nathan as the greatest posek, a decider of Jewish law of his generation.
The sages didn't just see him as a prophet. They saw him as a scholar second to none.
Known as a charismatic preacher, too, captivating audiences. And as we said, the essential harbinger for Sabbatai Zevi.
So this image of him as a deeply knowledgeable, zealous keeper of halakha, it just completely challenges the simplistic view of him as purely an anti-law mystic.
He was profoundly engaged with normative Jewish tradition, even as he innovated radically to accommodate the messianic reality he perceived.
That tension between deep halakhic commitment and radical messianic theology, that's precisely what makes him so complex, so fascinating.
So we're not looking at just one idea frozen in time. It's the evolution of a whole theological system over years.
Right. Professor Brzezinski, who studied Nathan deeply, observed that his teachings developed gradually, organically almost,
From vague, broken hints in his early writings.
to the most impressive and grand construction of his completed system. And Brzezinski says the ripest and fullest expression is Sefer Habri'a, written in 1669-1670.
That progression really underscores his intellectual rigor, the depth of his project.
Absolutely. From 1664, when he first started articulating his visions, until his death in 1680, Nathan systematically built what scholars call his unique system of Kabbalah.
The special mode of thinking of Sabbatean theosophy.
A comprehensive system explaining divine knowledge, the spiritual forces at play. It was an independent method, a distinct Kabbalistic school.
Based on Lurianic Kabbalah, but with new interpretations.
Profound and innovative readings of Luria, yes, and daring new interpretations of ancient sources, finding messianic implications maybe others had missed.
So Sefer Habri'a is the culmination, the magnum opus, where he fully laid out his radical but meticulously built vision.
It's like watching a master artist refine their masterpiece over time, revealing the full complexity in its final, most comprehensive form.
But all this intricate theology, it was about to face its ultimate test, the most traumatic event imaginable for the movement.
Sabbatai Zevi's conversion to Islam.
Right. Here's where it gets truly impactful. Our source calls it the harshest trauma of the Jewish world in that time.
And you have to remember, Sabbatai Zevi wasn't just some leader. He was seen as the mystical Messiah, the Redeemer.
So his conversion, well, it was unthinkable, devastating, sent shockwaves of betrayal, confusion, despair through Jewish communities everywhere.
Shaking the very foundations of their faith, their hope.
And this is precisely where Nathan's role becomes absolutely crucial and incredibly complex.
He was the one who, right in the middle of this shock, stepped up to explain the profound meaning of Zevi's conversion.
Instead of just dismissing it as apostasy, he tried to weave it into a larger divine plan.
Yes. And, importantly, he simultaneously tried to prevent the masses from converting along with him.
That sounds almost paradoxical.
Yeah.
Mitigate the disaster, stop widespread conversion, but also give Zevi's act a theological meaning.
An intellectual and spiritual tightrope walk of immense proportions. It demanded a radical reinterpretation of what messianism even meant.
And it wasn't just an explanation made up on the spot, out of desperation.
No, not ad hoc.
Yeah.
The source explains that this whole idea, the motif of the Messiah's foreign acts, was central to Nathan's thought before the conversion.
What did that mean, foreign acts?
The idea that the Messiah on his divine mission might need to do things that seemed unorthodox, even transgressive, to achieve ultimate redemption.
And this concept was already circulating.
It reached its social peak around 1666. It was a powerful theological engine for the huge messianic repentance movement happening then.
So after the conversion, Nathan deployed this same pre-existing idea.
To justify the greatest foreign act of all, leading ultimately to this radical vision of the converted Messiah as a necessary, bewildering stage of redemption.
So he wasn't just reacting, he was applying and dramatically expanding an existing concept to something unprecedented.
Exactly. He sought to give a systematic description of the tragic reality through the use of Lurianic Kabbalah literature.
How did Lurianic ideas fit in?
Well, he adapted concepts like the descent for the sake of ascent, arguing the Messiah had to descend into the lowest depths of impurity symbolized by conversion to elevate the divine sparks trapped there.
To bring about a higher form of redemption.
Right. He leveraged the existing, highly respected Lurianic system to make sense of what seemed utterly senseless, blasphemous to the wider Jewish world.
Not creating a new system from scratch, but radically reinterpreting an established one to absorb this shock into a grand, divinely ordained narrative.
A masterful, if controversial, theological move.
And what's particularly fascinating about Sefer Habri'a, the book itself, is that Nathan makes it clear, even after Zevi's rise and conversion, redemption isn't finished.
Right. Throughout his thought and explicitly in the book, the process of redemption is still not completed. It's not the end of the story. It's an ongoing, unfolding drama.
So the book grapples with this ongoing process.
Constantly. There's this constant tension in Sefer Habri'a between the finding of the Messiah, which had been the initial revelation, and the finding of the Messiah that is still to come.
He keeps emphasizing what still needs to happen.
Dozens of times. The Messiah, in his view, hasn't completed the work, and this includes radical ideas like certain commandments currently seen as hard-din rules, strict laws,
Yes.
will eventually be considered cheesed grace or loving kindness for Israel in a future perfected state of redemption.
Suggesting the very nature of religious observance might transform.
Potentially. But crucially, that ultimate transformation is not yet here. The tension is in that gap between the Messiah's arrival and the full realization of the Messianic age.
That dynamic perspective.
Yeah.
And the source notes it has an almost Leibovitzian feel, in that the Messiah is still to come, redemption is ongoing.
For listeners, Yeshayahu Leibovitz was a 20th century Israeli thinker who stressed the Messiah isn't a past figure but a future ideal, a constant striving.
And Nathan's system, centuries earlier, shares that view of redemption as a future-oriented process, not a closed historical event.
It seems so. It's a dynamism that forces constant engagement, reinterpretation, continued expectation. It keeps the followers invested in the process.
Okay, now we need to address a really common, deeply ingrained misinterpretation. One our source hits hard.
The idea that Nathan tried to uproot Jewish law, the antinomistic approach.
Exactly. Many have argued that, claimed he advocated rejecting commandments. But the source says, unequivocally, this by no means derives from his writings.
This is such a critical point, and Sefer Habri'a really helps set the record straight, challenging those long-held assumptions. Nathan categorically objected to any violation of the Torah and its commandments for the people.
So the idea that Sabbateans were encouraged to break laws.
It's more nuanced. The source is clear. Only the Messiah himself, under certain conditions, has a limited privilege to do what the masses might see as against religious law.
A privilege only for Zevi.
Yes, and even that was stated with extreme caution, carefully limited to specific, unique circumstances. It never applied to his followers.
So the common misinterpretation comes from later splinter groups, maybe.
Precisely. Later groups did embrace antinomianism, but that was a deviation from Nathan's own carefully crafted theology.
In fact, the source says the opposite about Nathan, that with his extremely hyper-halakhic consciousness.
Meaning an exceptionally strict adherence to Jewish law.
He actually called for the largest messianic repentance movement in Jewish history.
He believed the Messiah's arrival demanded intensified commitment to observance, moral purification, preparation for redemption.
He was without a shadow of a doubt one of the most zealous keepers of halakhic din among Kabbalists.
A rabbi passionately calling people back to Moses' teachings, strict observance.
So the persistent idea that he pushed an antinomistic approach is just.
Far from the truth. And the source reminds us the vast majority of the Sabbatean movement did not transgress in the slightest in terms of Jewish law.
Their messianic belief led to more rigorous adherence, not less.
For most, yes. Intense prayer, repentance, strict observance of mitzvot. Believing these actions would hasten the full redemption.
This isn't just a minor point. It's a direct refutation of a huge misconception.
Absolutely. Nathan's deep reverence for halakha is one of the most striking things you see when you read Sefer Habri'a carefully.
And this is where rediscovering the text really highlights that historical complexity. We tend to have these simplified views, right? Especially of controversial figures.
Right and white thinking.
Yeah. But here, the evidence forces us to embrace the complexity. Nathan, deeply committed to Jewish law, while navigating this insane messianic crisis, while building a framework for an experience that felt undeniably real to many, even amidst trauma.
It's a testament to the human intellect's ability to build intricate systems of meaning, even facing profound cognitive dissonance.
Now let's shift to the impact on religious experience. Sabbatai Zevi's appearance seems to have initiated a profound shift.
Absolutely. Suddenly, the focus moved for many towards an experience of internal freedom.
An unmediated experience based on a firm dialogue between heaven and earth.
And this became, for many adherents, the foundation of religious work and the intent of prayer. It was a radical new way of engaging with the divine, moving beyond just communal, formal structures.
So this emphasis on personal spiritual connection, the source calls it perhaps the biggest contribution the Sabbatean movement made to the Jewish tradition and faith.
This idea of an unmediated dialogue between an individual virtuoso and his creator. It wasn't just theology, it was a new way of experiencing faith.
Moving from a primarily public faith to a deeply personal one.
Historically, Jewish faith was very communally mediated. Synagogue, rabbis, shared ritual. Sabbateanism, pushed by Nathan, shifted the focus towards a direct, intuitive connection. An inner world experience became doctrine, a public phenomenon for believers.
This idea of a direct encounter with God, once maybe reserved for rare mystics, started permeating the consciousness of ordinary people.
That seems to be the effect.
And this sounds, well, it sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Thinking about later movements.
Like Hasidism.
Exactly. In Hasidism, that personal theology, the direct emotional connection to God, that's also central.
And the source makes a really interesting, significant point here. It suggests the Hasidic movement has drawn that idea from the Sabbatean movement.
Really? So what was originally just for Sabbatai Zevi, that personal dialogue with God,
Had somehow seeped into Hasidic culture,
Yeah.
allowing it to become a call for each individual to conduct that kind of dialogue with God.
Wow. That suggests a remarkable, maybe often unacknowledged intellectual and spiritual lineage.
Where the radical innovations of Sabbateanism found a kind of transmuted, more acceptable expression in a later normative movement that reshaped Jewish life. That's a huge claim.
It is. Now, this leads us deeper into that complex relationship between the mystical virtuoso Sabbatai Zevi and everyone else.
Right. A core idea emerged. Normative law, the halakha for everyone else, didn't apply to the virtuoso in the same way.
Giving him a special judicial status, positioning him as a law unto himself, beyond normal courts, even normal moral judgment.
It's an extreme theological claim, suggesting a messianic figure operating on a totally different plane.
And Maus Kahana, a scholar mentioned in the source, tried to portray Zevi, even before the conversion, as a king, a living law.
As the highest and most profound embodiment of the law, trying to argue Zevi wasn't outside the law, but its very essence. A messianic king defining the Torah's true meaning through his actions.
But then, after the conversion, the thinking shifted again.
Dramatically. Post-conversion, the Jewish Shabbat, the Sabbath day, became the key analogy for understanding the Messiah's actions and nature.
So. They associated Shabbat and Messiah.
Deeply. With Sabbatai Zevi himself becoming the Shabbat, it suggests a radical redefinition of messianic authority.
Okay, unpack that analogy.
Think about it. The Messiah is not a prophet, a sage, a rabbi, or a Dayan judge. He is a category unto himself. In the same way, Shabbat isn't just another weekday. It's not just a holiday or a fast day. It has its own unique, transcendent quality. It exists on a different plane.
So the Messiah is beyond the ordinary application of law, just like Shabbat is beyond the ordinary days of the week.
That's the idea. Pushing the boundaries of understanding divine agency, messianic identity. The source even floats this intriguing suggestion. Maybe Zevi is less like a Platonic philosopher king.
Ruling perfectly according to ideal law.
And more like a Nietzschean Übermensch.
Wow. The individual who transcends conventional morality creates their own values.
Overcoming existing norms. A self-sufficient, category-defying being whose existence reshapes reality, rather than just fulfilling existing roles. It's a provocative thought.
Socially, though, this conversion crisis just fractured the public. Two camps. Those who accepted Zevi, conversion and all, and those who rejected him.
Launching this great battle for the borders of normality across Jewish communities, a struggle over legitimacy, who were the true upholders of Judaism's future. The faithful or the unfaithful.
The unfaithful, those who initially followed him, but broke away after the conversion. What was their take?
They believed nothing fundamental had changed. Still exile, same Torah. Redemption could have happened, but they felt the people were unworthy due to sin. So, back to traditional righteousness, penitence.
Okay. And the faithful, those who kept believing.
They produced a totally different narrative. Redemption has begun, it did happen, our eyes have seen it, and not a stranger.
Even with the conversion.
Yes. They acknowledged a great mystery around it, admitted redemption was still not complete outwardly, but they affirmed it had started.
So how do you reconcile that? The powerful religious experience with the traumatic reality of conversion?
For the faithful, the power of the initial experience itself, the spiritual awakening Zevi ignited, that validated the start of redemption.
Yeah.
The conversion wasn't failure, it was a deeper, paradoxical stage.
And they had to operate in secret.
Yes, due to relentless persecution by the unfaithful, who saw them as heretics. They organized in a secret manner, praising secrecy itself.
Forging a new social structure, emphasizing hiddenness, inner truth.
And remember, they were actually a minority right after the conversion. Their survival and continued doctrinal development in secret shows incredible conviction and the power of Nathan's theology.
So for the faithful, the conversion had deep religious meaning, not scandalous.
Not scandalous, profound. That Zevi's earlier foreign acts established him as the virtuoso, the conversion was the ultimate foreign act.
The final descent into the qlipot, the shells of impurity.
To retrieve the last trapped divine sparks, elevate them for ultimate redemption. It held critical meaning according to a wide cache of midrashim, verses, and interpretations of common Kabbalic systems that Nathan meticulously reinterpreted.
Drawing on esoteric traditions about the Messiah entering evil to conquer it from within, making the conversion a necessary, terrifying stage.
Exactly.
So ultimately, Rabbi Nathan in Sefer Habri'a, he tried to frame the conversion itself as, what was the phrase? A huge cosmogonic event within God.
Yes, a grand shift within the theosophic system. A cosmogonic event within God means a profound fundamental transformation happening within the divine realms themselves, not just a human event.
And this theological move, it gave extreme meaning to human actions, especially performing mitzvah.
It gave them a thaumaturgic ability to influence all 5 of the upper worlds. Theurgy meaning human actions directly influencing the divine or cosmic order.
So every mitzvah wasn't just piety, it was a cosmic intervention.
Actively participating in, influencing the divine processes of redemption, providing profound meaning and agency, even facing inexplicable trauma like the Messiah converting.
Turning confusion into a higher, deeper mystery.
A way to hold on to faith amidst the unthinkable.
So wrapping this up, what have we learned from this deep dive into Sefer Habri'a and Rabbi Nathan of Gaza?
Well, we've definitely seen the profound impact of this rediscovered text. It gives us a much richer, more complex picture of the Sabbatean movement beyond the simple caricatures.
Revealing those intricate theological underpinnings. We've unpacked Nathan Ghazzati's incredibly influential, paradoxical role, prophet, Kabbalist, and strict halachist.
Deeply committed to Jewish law, even while innovating radically.
And we've explored that enduring, often misunderstood legacy, especially the idea of personal faith, that unmediated connection, and the Messiah's unique status.
It shows how a historical event, even a perceived disaster, can spark profound theological development and leave a lasting mark.
Absolutely. It's been quite a journey through a complex period.
And if we consider how deeply Nathan wrestled with reconciling that profound spiritual experience, the messianic fervor with the challenging, traumatic reality of the conversion, it kind of prompts us to reflect, doesn't it?
How so?
On how we ourselves grapple with contradictions in our own understanding of faith, history, the evolution of ideas. His work is a testament to that human need to find meaning, construct narratives, even when things seem bewildering or counterintuitive.
A reminder that truth often lies in complex layers, not simple binaries. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? As we confront new information that challenges our established narratives in history, science, our own beliefs, how do we balance that resistance front, that natural tendency to cling to the familiar?
With the imperative to truly listen. To allow new knowledge to reshape our understanding, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it overturns long-held views.
Yeah. What lost books or hidden insights in your own fields, your own interests, are just waiting there to fundamentally shift your perspective, if only you're willing to go on that deep dive.
Something to think about.
We invite you to continue your own deep dives. Keep questioning, exploring, and allowing new insights to emerge wherever they might lead. Until next time.